A very good evening to everyone. You're welcome to the HR Bar. Today with me, I have a very, very important guest who goes by the name Mr. Austin Akufu Game. He's someone we all call Papa. So for those of us who've had interactions with him, you would bear witness that he's an awesome man. Today, he's going to help us understand the labor law. I understand that he's part of the people who put the labor law that seems to be troubling us every day as HR practitioners. And so, Papa, you're welcome to the HR Bar.
Thank you.
So if you can just help us, we would want to understand what is the motive behind the act regarding terminations? Because every day we have someone here who is troubled as to how to deal with their stuff.
Thank you. Most grateful. And I look forward to working with you people in a lot of other areas with time. Let me state that before the coming into force of Act 2003-651, the reality has been that we're using the old system under Act 299 of 1965. And that actually, because of lack of knowledge and the kind of expectations from both labor and management, the Act did not provide opportunity for cooperation. You see yourselves as though you are cat and mouse, and therefore, if you are a labor leader, you should not even greet your HR manager or CEO. During those days, I used to be a labor leader myself, and that was precisely what it was. When you are a labor leader and you attempt to be saying hello to your managers too much, you become an enemy with the people who elect you into that office. Over time, it was realized that the HR should be playing pivotal roles in the management of affairs. Those days we used to be called personnel managers. And I recall as far back as 1997 at the trade fair site, when I was the president of the Institute of Human Resource Managers in Ghana, we initiated a move and have the name even changed from personnel managers to human resource management. In fact, that's how the name came to stay here in Ghana. Over time, people today even prefer to call it people management practitioners and so forth and so on, because of the linkage and the synergy that you require in working cooperatively with people who work for the organization you lead as an HR practitioner. I do know that many companies prefer to call the HR, still subordinate them to a level as though they are just that support service providers. I refuse that for many years now. People who know. We are business strategists that strategize to help the company achieve the reason why they set up the company in the first place. So I see the HR as a leader, as a unique leader, an inspirational leader to serve both the company executive and the workforce. So you are like a mother of a twin who must lie down and let both the workers suck your breast and the management also suck your breast. Of course, the stakeholders, who are the shareholders, have a part in the success story of the company, and therefore everything revolves around the HR person. All other heads of departments are to be seen as HR people potentially, but they are not HR people per se. That is the reason why there has to be policies. In our Labor Act, the present Labor Act, Act 651, is a progressive labor act. It's not an act that, like people keep on saying that they should change it. It's because they don't know how to they don't have knowledge deeply about it, and have the implementation guide that should help them to do it. What actually can be done is to strengthen the legislative instrument 1822 and 1833 to give effect to the Labour Act's implementation. The Act itself, there is nothing there to be changed, to be honest with you. In the next 100 years to come, if there is time, there is nothing there to change. Because that's why it didn't take 7 days to do it. It took 4 years to write the Labour Act. Now, in section 8, right from A going, it imposes on the employer the right to initiate steps to have policies on discipline and termination, and how to set up things about the organization to succeed. Right in section 9, it tells you those things that you as the HR should strengthen to help management provide so that the people can work without break, so that things would be mobile, generally in the organization. So talking about discipline, it's a major thing. So it's actually not a negotiable item per se. I say per se because you work with people. It is for the HR to initiate a move to have disciplinary policy prepared and socialized with your social partners, who are either union leaders, or if the environment is not a unionized environment, it doesn't really matter. All you need to do is to allow the workers have ownership of that policy, because if they abuse the policy, violate the policy, you're going to use it to club them down. And because you're going to use it to club them down, they must have ownership of it. So the policy is not intended to be kept under lock and key in somebody's drawer. So only as and when I offend the system, then it's waved at me. No, it shouldn't be so. So policy must first be written. It's not supposed to be a negotiable item. I'm aware that many companies at the negotiation table with the workers or union leaders, they even negotiate disciplinary processes, which is wrong. If you talk about high-level HR policy and interventions, discipline is even prepared before the formation of the company, because it's part of the things that you must think about. But because you do training and development of skills, this policy becomes part of even the introductory message to people, and as the days roll by, you still educate them. However, the intervention here is this. Under the law and by best practice, assuming somebody offend the company's disciplinary policy, all you need to do, depending upon the significance of the offense, you interdict the person. Because many a times I hear the word, let the person be suspended. No, that is an error. You interdict the person or the people, and then you initiate the process based upon the policy and the disciplinary processes. You get the people, you organize a meeting, of course, and let the people go through a process, disciplinary process. And at the end of the day, one of the punishment could be suspension and not the other way around. Because if any court you will go, any adjudicating body you may appear before, if you've already suspended the person, then you cannot say visit another, to become double punishment. So you interdict, you go to the process, and then if the significance of the offense is not so high, then suspension could be the order of the day, suspension with pay, sometimes suspension without with pay, sometimes without pay, and then the other punishments, including dismissal. Now remember, under Section 62 of the Labour Act of Ghana, if you even don't perform to the plan of the organization reserves the right to terminate your appointment but it's a process. You might have given the person the opportunity after it's been found out that it's not performed to the delight of the employer, based upon targets that you have set under Section 8 of the Labour Act. Then you initiate steps to have the person trained, retrained. If it's not going to perform again to the expectation of the employer, then because of documentation that you have already done, the person can be terminated without a hitch. But people are protesting, people are appealing against such termination because the processes by the HR and the heads of departments appear all the time incomplete. And once it's incomplete, those are some of the consequences you'll be facing. Now, the other thing worth mentioning is that under Section 30, subsection 3 of the Labour Act, we mention once only in the Labour Act dismissal. This time around, take away the word summary dismissal because it's not necessary. Dismissal is dismissal. Now, once the offense is as such that is got into the zenith, the height of everything, you can, under the law and by best practice, dismiss the person even without offering the person notice, because the offense is grievous, is determined that this way around we cannot tolerate you in the system anymore. No matter what the person will do, he will always be the loser because you've done the right thing. So we have to distinguish between termination, dismissal, and or the person even resigning and going away. Now, remember that if someone should be dismissed, it's without notice, and therefore, if there is any statutory payment that is due to the person can have it because he's earned it already. But if it's a dismissal based upon certain major offense, you have to calculate and see whether you can get your money back before, if there is something to be paid, is paid. But statutory things like Social Security, Provident Fund, second tier, and the likes of that, once it's earned, it's earned. And so the person has it over a period of time. Now, this can be linked to contract. Under Section 12 of the Labour Act, there is a clear-cut approach to managing contract. And there are several phases of contract. You can be working with an organization like you are working with this organization. Working with an organization makes you, have the title as though you are permanent. But you are on contract. Everybody is on contract. You can die. When you die, your contract is terminated automatically. That's the way it is. You can resign, your contract is gone, and so forth and so on. And if you are not performing, you are not obeying the rules and regulations of the company, and persistently that is the way you are showing forth that character, the company can go to a process and terminate your contract. Now, if you go between, let's say, example between the school, let's say under Ministry of Education, you have the medical school. Then you have under Ministry of Health, you have Kolebu. Mm-hmm. Now, the two are two distinct, places. But initially, until the build-up of this new medical facility at Legon, Kolebu is the one designated for the lecturers and consultants at the school, the medical school, to go and do practical work with the students. But there has been some mix-up all these years, whereby the consultants from the school go to Kolebu, use the facility of Kolebu, use the raw materials of Kolebu, being dead bodies and also alive people, patients who are there, and want them to be paid, which is wrong. And they come to render what you want to describe as contract for service. There's a difference between having to be engaged on contract for service, and that has a predetermined period. So I'm engaging you, we have engaged you to provide for us a contract, to provide for us a service on this contract, predetermined for, let's say, 1.5 years or 2 years. When that contract is over, there is nothing like, once the language is well written, for instance, at the end of that such contract, the word CRTIN, certain, should always appear there, because once you say the contract is 18 months certain, what it means at the end of the 18 months, you don't even need to greet me before you go away.
Really?
Yes, that's what it is, because it's predetermined. But we make mistake, and today we have end of service benefit, ex gratia, for people whose contract have been predetermined already. You can only pay something if you, the employer, you are abrogating the contract before the contract period ends. If there is, let's say, 6 months left, you pay for the 6 months.
Okay.
And that is it. So you are not paying anything new. That's why in section I believe 73 or so, under the Labour Act, indeed section 66 under the Labour Act, you see that there is what you call exceptions. Yeah. The exceptions there tells you that people who are on contract working with an organization, and it's a lifelong kind of contract, you can be paid if the company do not want X number of people again going to a restructuring, then the company pays you what you want to describe as redundancy pay. The people whose contract have been predetermined are not entitled to it. But unfortunately, in the country today, if you have got a contract to supply something for 8 months, and so you engage me and others for the 8 months, it's predetermined. So I'm not entitled to any restructuring something unless you are abrogating the contract before the 8 months. It is the leftover contract that we pay for, and not ex gratia, and not end of service benefit, and not a redundancy pay. That doesn't really make business sense. That is what the difference is. Now, the role in all these things of HR is very, very critical. That's why you are the inspirational leader of the organization. And if any CEO will not defer to that knowledgeable, that skillful HR practitioner, your business will suffer paralysis. And so they must learn to listen to the HR people. And that's why you HR people, you must be very, very, very clear in your mind as to what kind of understanding you have about the processes that you engage in. It's not everything that is even worth talking about. What is worth talking about, say it within the confines of the law, best practice, and yourself as an inspirational leader. You are exemplary. That's why HR people are not supposed to be corrupt. That's why HR people are not supposed to be blabbers. People who talk plenty. You say that which is appropriate at any point in time, and you apply principles that are indivisible, and keep rolling it over time. So it's very critical, and this all linked to performance.
Sometimes, it's just touch and brush. You have a situation, you try to speak to the employee, and then you try to not to issue any letters, believing that they would act in good faith. Now, if it does happen that you have a situation where you actually just have to let them go, but you didn't, record all these sessions, what would you advise to be the best approach for an HR person?
The consequences are very dire. So don't even start it from that angle. Documentation is critical because human beings, we all see things differently. And because we see things differently, you have to ensure that You document everything and it has to be signed on. Those who need to know must know. Those who must have copies must have copies. And you must keep your copies, have assurance that is there. Otherwise, you will live to suffer the consequences for it. Many people go to court or go to Labor Commission. They suffer because of technicalities. Now, discipline is a major thing. First of all, nobody likes to be disciplined. Human being what we are. So if you have to, as HR, embark upon anything that will smell discipline, then you must begin it well, in between well, ending well. And what that means is that if you are writing a query, which normally should be written by the head of department or the supervisor who happen to be on the spot where the thing happens. So you do not make the HR's face a sandpaper, where everything, it is the HR that will write. That is unnecessary. So allow the head of department to write the query, let the people reply, you serve as a backup. That's why that must form part of the HR policy. And HR policy, I dare say, must be clear, without any ambiguity. Once the HR policy is clear, now all heads of departments who are, like I said from the beginning, they are potential HR people, they must follow it through the HR policy, the steps they are to follow. When they should contact your office, they contact the HR manager's office. Then you play advisory role at that stage. It's when they have to activate a disciplinary process that the HR take center stage to ensure that the processes are gone through without hitch. And the worker must be given all the opportunity. There is the internal aspect of the process, there is the external aspect of the process. The internal process are already documented either in the condition of service or collective agreement. Now, once you go through the process and the person is dissatisfied at the end of the day, and you want to engage the services of a lawyer, a consultant, or whoever, or a labor commission, they are at liberty to do so because there must be freedom for everybody to engage. Now, your documentation that you have done and done well, let's positively assume so, is what will serve you now when you appear before a labor commission or an adjudicating body, either in the court or otherwise. Now, so you and the sequence of events also matters. So you present these things in that sequence and let everybody know that you've gone through the process as is expected of a professional HR person. That way you are free from any form of blame game or of the sort. You know, remember that the HR is always the easiest target. You are virtually like the baller where they pour all the useless things. Every head of the department that even had a role in the activity, at the end of the day, is the HR who advises. It's the HR who advises. So the HR must be on top of his business. And that's very important. And I do pray and hope that HR people will take this seriously. And we must have in mind the future. Future means tomorrow. When you are doing something today, you must know there is going to be tomorrow. And what are we here for? What are we here for? We are here for business. That's why I remember saying that you are the business strategist. Now, the strategy that is carried out, whether it is a production department, whether it is a safety and health department, whether it is what, at the end of the day, a certain strategy which is being evolved, which is being brought to bear on the business, must work and work in the interest of the organization principally. But who are the people that makes your organization who you are? One is your customers. the customers who pay your monthly pay. I've asked this question even at a big forum at the university recently, and virtually everybody was flopping. You know, customers pay our monthly pay, not the company, not the HR, not the accountant. It's customers that pay. If you see your money director signing your check, it is a customer signing the check. I told you my study all the while has been in Japan and other places, but I think I love the way they go about it. I wanted to study and they asked me this question one day and I flopped. And I learned a lot of things from it. Customers are very critical. Suppliers are very critical. That's why in our Labor Act, we have created space for as to how matters should be resolved. And I've brought this back because of having extensively spoken about discipline. Discipline, yes, but how do we resolve these things that come around us? We must have a preventive approach as to how we can prevent the event from even occurring in the first place. Then we must have an early resolution mechanisms. And then if it comes to the crunch, and you have to find another means of negotiating these things out, you do so. Instead of falling into the hands of a third party. I will enjoy it if you come and engage me, but the point is that it's very expensive. You wash your dirty linen outside. And remember, customers are very sensitive. So if they know that there is a place where there is not the competency of management is being brought into question, and there is always an agitation, there is hanging of red band, and there is indiscipline far above expectation, you force those customers to look elsewhere. Remember, we are now living in a global village.
Yes.
To the extent that this same furniture you are selling here, there are others selling similar or more than that, or something slightly lower than yours they can afford to go and buy. So why do you stop work? As soon as production stops, income flow stops. So the money we are looking for to disburse is now limited. Once the financial pie is limited, the struggle for it becomes another matter altogether. So I think HR is a very, very critical part of any organization and must be accorded the due respect. They themselves must also ensure that the respect they deserve is given to you. You must earn it. You cannot expect that people will give you respect and be calling you, give you the accolades that you deserve. No, you must earn it. You must learn to be gentle, honest, open. The labor law enjoins us to be open to the processes that we go through, and everybody defers to that office. And we must learn, we must know that time is money. Therefore, time wasted means money wasted. So we must be specific to the issues we raise and talk about the issues instead of engaging in media war, instead of engaging in war between you and union leaders or workers leaders. And don't forget, whether you are unionized or not unionized is immaterial. Workers are workers. So I think that it's very important that we bear these things in mind and ensure that we perform the task, the important reason why the company has been established in the first place not be upheld. Otherwise, then your presence there is of no use to anybody. And the shareholders must have their portion, and that's why we must share relevant information with the working people. But they don't say we want 30%, 60%, 70%. Both of you knowing that you cannot reach that. That's why you must share relevant. That's why you must pay people based on performance, not based on appearance at the workplace. And some unions are sophisticated. I'm aware right now, workers in some of the unions have developed a system of ensuring that they get their due share. And I have been telling them we have two legs. We have the micro leg and we have the macro leg. Now, the macro leg enjoins organized labor, employers, and government to meet at the national tripartite level, not only to determine national daily minimum wage, but under Section 113, to ensure that they speak about the importance of the economy and to demand from government the prudence in the management of the economy and to demand from government how they think that the tax thresholds to be carried over. Otherwise, it would, because people are asking for restoration of the income they have lost. The employer and the HR office do not have any control over how taxes are determined, how forex is managed, how the business environment is. Right now, there is a threat to increase energy price of about 30%. It means business costs will go up. Who bears the cut? Now, the micro side is detailed in your condition of service or collective agreement, where employers take care of the health cost, they take care of lunch, they take care of the pay, they take care of social security, statutory payments. So I think that is very, very important that these things are brought to bear, and HR people must have knowledge about and understanding and the skill about how the micro and the macro should be situated within the Labor Act. Because I know for a fact, and in all humility I want to say this, that I know for a fact that we go negotiating by way of unions or workers submitting proposals, management submitting some kind of counter proposals. Both parties go and meet and they start argument and debate and so forth and so on. That way, you may end up spending about 6 months negotiation table, or winner and a loser, and so forth and so on. But that is chaotic. We need to introduce the interest-based negotiation we talk about. It's part of Section 97. It's part of Section 98. The processes are clear in the Labor Act, and therefore there's a new dimension. The new dimension is what I've just spoken about. One, what is the micro leg? What is the macro leg? How do you fuse the two? Which part should government take? Which part should the employer and the workers? How much percentage can we set aside for total labor cost, not just pay? That's why in the Labor Act we didn't say just pay. We said remuneration. Remuneration includes the pay plus allowances. So I think there is a lot we all have to learn. I don't want to profess that I know everything, but by God's grace, I think that we have some level of understanding about these processes. And we should just be talking to one another. And I'm glad for the platform. I'm so happy for the colleagues who are on it. And I pray and I'll be open. If there is any question, we can clarify and seek assistance from one another. Why not? I would also like to ask for help. And I appreciate the invitation to be part of this process.
So, Papa, let me just quickly ask, regarding having someone accompany the staff to a hearing. Now, what specifically are the duties of those who accompany them? Are they supposed to play any role during that hearing, or they are simply there as a representation? And what risk can an HR face if they do not allow such representation?
Thank you. That's why I said there are two sides of the coin. The first side of the coin is the internal processes. What do your condition of service or collective agreement or policies say, which has already been socialized with the workers, so they are not unaware that in the unlikely event of an indisciplined matter, internally, first they will ignite certain processes that would enable you to have understanding as to why this thing happened in the first place. That period is entirely you first answering the query, and if they have a union, even if they don't have a union, you ask the person to come with a friend in the company. Now, if he's coming with a friend, the friend is there to listen and to know that he's not being intimidated during this process. And this day and age of technology, you announce to them that we want to have an official recording of these things, so that denial will no longer be there. So this thing is being recorded. The friend is there. Your initial message Well, you have been invited here. This is an internal process. Your friend is here to listen and be a witness. So the friend is here as a witness.
Okay.
And if the friend wants a certain clarification that will not disorganize the process, why not? The person can ask. When that is over and there is a dissatisfaction as to what measure the HR want to initiate against the fellow, then that fellow is entitled, now it's external.
Okay.
He has the right to go to Labour Commission or the law courts. Indeed, the first place of call by practice is to go to the National Labour Commission, or even go to a private person, because by law, workers are free to go to a private person to facilitate the process of resolving the matter. Now, once that is gone through, then whatever that period, you can hire a lawyer, you can hire a consultant, and that one is free for all. That's why you must have documentation in the first place, so that you present your documentation in such a sequence and within the confines of the law and best practice that you cannot be questioned. And if you are questioned, it's only for you to have the patience and clarify. And you will always be the victorious side if you go to the processes well. And I'd like to also say that is that the best thing is when you have a problem, please talk to somebody. Somebody who is either a colleague of yours who know it, or a consultant, or somebody with some vast knowledge about these processes. Talk to somebody. Now, labor relations, HR related matters is not a legalistic matter per se. Therefore, it doesn't make sense deferring to a lawyer who is merely going to be professing legalistic views. It's industrial relations, it's about relationship, it's about your tomorrow. Because remember, every worker has a certain friend in the workplace. So whatever you are doing to him or her is being spread through various platforms within the company.
And I would like to understand how notices impact termination. You've had a staff who's been with you well over 3 years, and then for some reason you may want to let them go. Now, conditionally or per practice, you'd see that the notice is normally a month. And I don't know, are there any implications? Is that how it actually ought to be?
Yeah, thank you. I think that there's some basic error about how this should be activated. You see, Section 17 represents the common law position, and we deliberately put it there because there must be something for somebody who is completely vulnerable, and that's why it's there like that. And it's properly demarcated if you've done 3 years or more, if you've done just 1 year, you've done some monthly, how it should be activated is there under Section 17. But it's purely the common law position. But right after that, you see Section 19 tells you about exception. Exception because once there is a voluntarily written legal understanding between the two parties, that is to say either a condition of service, a collective agreement, or a contract of any form that is signed onto voluntarily by the two sides, that supersedes Section 17. So any lawyer or HR practitioner who will advise an employer with such written condition of service that you can terminate someone just giving a month notice, that is a complete error and should not be entertained. Because even right into Section 62 of the Labour Act and 63, thereabout, some of the decisions you have to give reasons, and most employers don't even want to give reasons. You must state the reason why the person, because the person must work again, and people are doing background checks to find out why have you left here, why have you. That's why you must give reason. Because nobody is a slave to anybody. So So it's very important that we unburden the people who have worked with us and are going away by antagonizing the system. So I think it's very important to understand that Section 17 is merely a common law position. But 19, which tells you if that there is an exception, and it's very clear. See, the provisions of sections 15, 16, 17, and 18 are not applicable where a collective agreement or any form of contract exists between the two of you, and it inures to the benefit of the worker. That's why we have written it in the first place. So we don't activate the common law position when there is something superior. And let it be stated also clearly that under section 1054 of the Labour Act, any written condition of service between two parties takes precedence over the common law position, and even takes precedence over the law itself, because the law is just the basic thing. But the one that you voluntarily, looking at your system, looking at your purse, looking at the flow of your income, looking at the situation and the motivation for engaging the person and so on and so on, agreed voluntarily without fault. I'm using the word voluntarily because nobody put pressure on anybody to sign onto anything. That is why when you are negotiating, there cannot be a strike, there cannot be intimidation. That's why there are rules that governs the procedure of the negotiation.